All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Book Troop live show for the month of June, where we read Immaculate Conception by Ling Ling Huang. Ooh, look at us. Look at
we all have the
that.
aardvark one.
I know. Wow, that's cool. I love the aardvark. Oh my god, they're so
quality. Oh my god, let's
So
just pitch
soft.
aardvark.
Yeah.
They're so soft.
It's so freaking soft. Like I've never felt this before.
I know. It's like rubber.
Yeah, I love it. I don't know what they're doing to make these over there, but I love the aardvark copies. Fantastic. Anyway, thank you so much to everybody already joining us in the chat. I appreciate it. I know midweek is, not the most ideal sometimes for a live show, but I still appreciate everybody showing up. And today I am joined by my two friends. We have Sydney and we have Kayla. I have both of their channels linked down below if for whatever reason you're unfamiliar. Would you want to just introduce yourselves and like what you typically read on your channel, Sydney, if you want to start?
Sure. So I'm Sydney, Sydney, whatever you want to call me. I am an ICU nurse by day and booktuber every other moment of my life, and love the dynamic. But I read predominantly fantasy, but I do love horror, psychological horror. I do love a good lit fic moment. I think the only genre that I don't typically read is like historical fantasy, but fantasy, horror, occasional romance, my bread and butter. I love doing vlogs, like challenge vlogs, and just started a new series where I have a spinner wheel helping me and also maybe not helping me finish book series. It's been super fun, but yeah.
Perfect. I love the new series, by the way. I love anything with like a spinner wheel. I think it's so fun.
It is chaotic. It's for sure.
I need to get myself a spinny wheel. I've been looking at like Etsy at like custom painted ones that you can get in like really fun colors, and I'm like I want a big one. Yeah, I want like a big one.
That'd be cool.
Like pull it out on a wheel.
Exactly. I have such a tiny house. I've thought about getting a spinner wheel, but I'm like, you're obnoxious. I'm Kayla. I can't think of the last time I had to do this. I post 2 videos a week, and I have for 10 years. And I read like horror, mystery, less mystery than usual right now. A good amount of fantasy, and I'm trying to find romance that I like. That's always a journey that I'm on, and I'm failing miserably, but I'm having a good time along the way. That's me.
Nice. Yeah, in a nutshell. Love it. Also, yes, happy Canada Day to fellow Canadians. Super awesome. Well, thank you all for being here. I appreciate it so much. I kindly very asked Kayla if she wouldn't mind pitching the synopsis of this book, and
I said no.
Yeah, Sydney was like, "Not me." So I should have had you draw sticks or something. I don't know.
Oh my god.
But yeah, so while Kayla is pitching the premise of the book for anybody who might not, have read it, the beginning of this live show will be spoiler free, and we will warn you before we jump into spoilers. But if you want to put in the chat, maybe you can put a yellow heart if you did read the book this month, and then maybe you can put a blue heart if you haven't yet, or if you DNF'd it or anything like that, just so we can get a visual. And yeah, why don't you take it away?
I think the pitch in the opening, like, sounds a little bit different than what the book actually is. So the way that I would pitch it for the people leaving the blue hearts who are still waiting to be convinced, I would say it is about friendship. No, wait, I take it back. It's about 2 passionate women and their artistic pursuits as they integrate technology and weird things into their art. I would say they start to push boundaries with their performance art. And over the years, we see how their lives differ, the lives, like the families and the businesses that they get into. And then they come back together as they learn about this technology that renovates your mind. Yeah.
No,
that's that.
That's fantastic. Thank you for that. I see a good mix. Like I see a lot of yellow hearts and a lot of blue hearts. So I'm glad that some of you are still tuning into the live show. I know a lot of people said that they were going to tune into this live show to decide whether or not they wanted to read this book. Like they wanted to see our opinions, see how everybody's feeling before they decide. So thank you for joining, even if you haven't read the book. I appreciate it. I think we're gonna go ahead and jump right into our ratings because I feel like there's a lot to unpack with this book, and I want to give ourselves enough time to like get through things. So we'll just go ahead and jump right into ratings. If you want to let us know in the chat, what did you rate this book out of 5 stars? I feel like for this one, I've seen so many mixed reviews. It seems like people are either really loving or hating this one. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of middle of the road opinions with this one, but that's just what I've been seeing on the Discord and around. So Sydney, do you want to start?
I'm literally sweating. I'm so stressed out. I really liked it. Like, I gave it a 4 or 4.5.
Oh my god, nice.
I thought you were gonna say it's like it's a 1 star.
No, I'm nervous regardless. I was like, no.
Okay, and like a brief non-spoilery why it was 4 stars or 4.5 stars?
I think that if there is a main character that's like a creative person, like whether they're like a writer, an artist, or author, or anything, I'm like already so much more inclined to be interested and enjoy being in their head. And I think that this just had a really good mashup of things that I really like within books, which is like, it was a little bit weird. It was pretty weird. It really played with like the act of creation. It touched on sort of like free will and brought in a lot of like really of the moment political and social issues like AI and like just like who has the right to do things and like different like class structures and social things. Like it did it, in my opinion, in a really interesting way. And I just really liked it.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear it. You sound scared to say.
I am.
That's fantastic. I'm glad to hear it.
Gabby, have you already shared your rating somewhere?
I did talk about it in my June wrap-up that I posted like 2 days ago.
Oh, okay. I feel like the way that you're talking makes me think you didn't like it, but I haven't seen what you thought about it. I also gave it a 4. Actually, I gave it a 4.5. I'm so close to a 5. I feel like somebody could convince me that this is a 5. And it's interesting that you say you saw like a mix of hate and love, because previous to now, I didn't see that. And I thought we all only loved it. Like, I thought everyone was like in agreement that this is the horror book of the year. Like, this is the one. It's so good.
I see.
But I do see in the comments a good mix. My explanation is that I just loved the slow build. Like, this really has all of the elements of a literary horror that I love. I can't really think of many flaws. I'm going to have to think of one when you ask the question of something we didn't like. But it's like one of those horror books that's hard to pitch. And anytime there's a book like that mixes genres, that mixes like vibes, it's probably going to be my favorite thing. So it is.
Oh my god, I'm so glad to hear that you both loved it. Favorite book of the year. That's fantastic. I'm just kidding. I was gonna be like, I hate it. No, I'm just kidding. I gave it 3 stars. I really enjoyed some aspects of this book. I think the reason why I ended up giving it 3 stars is because for me, the first like 100 to 150 pages, I was like, this is the slowest book I've ever read in my life. I want to DNF it. I'm so bored. Like, I was like, what am I reading about? Art? Like, I don't care. It felt pretentious. I was just like bored out of my mind. But then the second half really impressed me. I feel like the sci-fi themes got a little bit stronger and like the plot got stronger and like things that were happening. I was like, whoa. But I think I still wanted to rate it a little bit lower just because I didn't feel as connected to these characters as I expected to feel. And I feel like sometimes the writing felt a little bit like clinical in a way that made me feel really disconnected from everything that was happening. So I didn't like love the writing in this one as much as I was hoping to. But yeah, I think it's around 3 stars. I don't know. I have such mixed feelings on this one. Yeah, I wanted to ask, because I think you both have read the other book from this author, right? Natural Beauty. And I believe that's why I wanted you both to be on the live show. Yes, Natural Beauty. So just comparing this one to Natural Beauty, did you enjoy Natural Beauty? Like, what did you rate that one? And how did you find this one in comparison?
So I personally liked this one more. For different reasons though, because I like the discussion that Natural Beauty had, which is like, at what length will we go to be beautiful in the eyes of society?
Right.
I like that discussion, and I like how Ling Ling Huang did it. Like, it wasn't a book that like I could really tell you why I didn't like it, other than, I mean, I still gave it like a 4, so like I didn't not like it, but like I feel like I was set up horribly for that book, because it was pitched as like, it was like, it's Mona Awad, and like Mona Awad's one of my favorite authors, and I can see the comparison, like absolutely. But I think I just went in expecting a little something different, and it did have elements of like those like really surreal things that I really liked. But I don't know, it just like didn't live up to my own hype. So I think, again, just to like, I just have a soft spot for like the talk of creation and an artist and things like that. So I think that just fundamentally I was set up to like this one a little bit more.
Yeah. Nice.
I gave Natural Beauty 5 stars. So I was really excited when this was an option for your book club, because I was going to consider, we talked behind the scenes. We were like, which one of us should read this? We can't both do it.
Yeah.
I was really excited to read it because I love Natural Beauty. I just knew that Ling Ling Huang was for me. And how I would compare them is like, there's a lot of books, because what they're similar in is like a woman who gets kind of caught up in something weird, right? And in a lot of those types of books, it's somebody who's really naive and is manipulated into something they don't realize that they are. And not to get into any spoilers yet about this, but that's not really the perspective of this. Like, she has more agency than a typical protagonist does in this scenario, and did in Natural Beauty. So I thought that was a really interesting take from her, and I was excited that that was the focus of it.
Yeah, nice. I think I would agree. Like, Natural Beauty is one that I gave 4.5 stars. Like, I considered it to be like one of my top favorite books that I had read from that year, and so that's why I was so excited to have this one as a book club discussion. So I do think I prefer Natural Beauty. I think the themes in that book were a little bit stronger for me, but it's interesting because I think the plot of this one is actually more interesting than Natural Beauty for me, but I think I just connected a little bit more with like the writing and the characters in Natural Beauty as opposed to this one. If that makes any sense at all, I don't know. Anyway, actually, before we do jump into spoilers, I just wanted to ask, like, just generally speaking, do you typically enjoy like horror books that are mixed with sci-fi, or kind of like more like literary horror that has like sci-fi elements in your books, or is that something you don't typically enjoy reading genre-wise?
I think I'm enjoying it more. I don't know if it is a like little niche subgenre of this genre that I have explored too intensely to really like say yes 100% of the time, or like 50% of the time. But I do think that I am inclined to really like it, especially just with how technology is integrating into our everyday life now. I think that it's interesting and scary of like how real it is. I think it makes things more real almost.
Yeah.
And like especially in this book, like I see it happening.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
For that aspect, I would say yeah, totally. I think it's a cool little niche within the horror subgenre.
I'm really specific with the horror that I pick up. I think I prefer it to be really literary in nature. And so science fiction often doesn't really lend to that, because it's about like technology, and I find a lot of sci-fi horror is very dude bro horror, and like that's not what I want to be reading. So the fact that this one leaned more into the artistic stuff is the reason I liked it. I think there's only one sci-fi horror I've ever actually liked, and that's Leech. But that one is like weird to explain. So yeah, as long as it's not space horror. I've learned recently I don't like space horror, but techie horror, I guess I'm into with this one. We'll see. I think this could change the trajectory of me with sci-fi horror.
Yeah. I know. I was going to say, I'm still exploring whether or not I like sci-fi and horror together, because I do like sci-fi itself as a genre, like outside of, being connected to other things. But I do think, yeah, like how you said, how a lot of, I think horror sci-fi is kind of dominated by like the dude bro type of books. And so I don't think those are exactly my thing either, but I do like the more sci-fi horror that explores like female relationships and like technology, I think is an interesting thing to explore with this one. So I would agree. Anyways, I think we're going to jump into spoilers because we've already been talking for like almost 15 minutes, and I feel like there's a lot to get through with this one. So jumping into spoilers from this point forward, if you haven't read the book yet, then this is where we part ways. Thank you so much for being here. So getting into spoilers, I guess my first question was going to be, how did you feel about Enka as a protagonist? Like, how did you feel about following from her perspective, and how did you feel about her relationship / friendship with Matild, just in general?
I was really into hold on. What was the question? I was trying to see if I wrote any like ideas down and then I forgot what you said.
No worries.
With your
I was
mouth.
just how is Enka, like, how did you enjoy Enka as a character and her relationship with Matild?
Yeah, that's the one.
I can go first if you want a minute to think.
No, it's okay. I just literally blacked out for a second. Go first, actually.
I think I liked Enka. Like I said, she's not your typical naive protagonist who just falls into this like journey without knowing what she's getting into. She has more agency as a character. There's still things that she doesn't really know about, but the fact that the book starts out with her being obsessed with Matild, I was really interested in following that journey because like a lot of times I feel like it's the same kind of story. Like we have a woman who's like really obsessed with this other woman and steals her life, and then that's kind of the whole thing.
Mhm.
And I like that this one was more about their journey way before that. I know people will complain that like the second half of the synopsis doesn't happen until the last 70 pages of the book. And so
Mhm.
this isn't the perfect pitch. But waiting to see what occurred in their lives before that moment that they were going to like mind connect or whatever, that's what was most interesting to me. And yeah, so I liked Enka as a protagonist because she wasn't exactly who I expected, but Matild wasn't either. So I'm sure you have that as a question too. What did we think of Matild as a person?
Yeah.
I think actually something really interesting about Enka too was the moment where she was like had the mind thing and she was saying like I wanted to see our friendship from Matild's perspective. I was like, isn't that so relatable? Like you want to
Mhm.
see how other people actually think of you, but if she
Yeah.
goes so far as to like be able to look at herself from someone else's perspective, that's a
Yeah.
crazy idea.
That
I
is
have
crazy.
literally thought about that every single day since I finished this book. And like actually it's kind of helped me like in my life, like try to not think so hard about myself. Like I don't know if that'll
Mhm.
continue. I hope it will, but like I think that I am noticing that. I mean, I think it helped me notice that like we really are just like our own biggest critic, and I think that people inherently will like if they're in your life for a good reason, then they will think pretty highly of you, you know,
Mhm.
unless you're a piece of shit, but like, you know, whatever. But yeah, like that and leaning back towards the like how sci-fi typically is like, dude, bro, I feel like this like dynamic between the two sort of made it more like emotional and soft, which was a really like just to further that statement of like I didn't think of it in that way of why I could like this more than another sci-fi, but I do think that like that is a really like big thing that I loved about the book because I do like their dynamic in a very complicated way because
Mhm.
obviously not all intentions were pure. But I think that I really liked Enka, like again, hesitantly, because there are things that were not great, but like
Mhm.
I think that how specifically how she was thinking about how like if there was a specific quote that I remember very vividly that was like how when Matild was playing with her kids and she's like, I have like, is the fact that I can't play with my children, is that why I also can't create? Or like that sort of dynamic. And I just think that they lent a lot of different things to the story. And I just, they were, I think they were the perfect little duo for what Ling Ling Huang was trying to do. I think she
Mhm.
did it so well.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, I feel like I'm torn on how I feel about the characters because I do like stories that follow like, you know, messy relationships between female characters. Like I think that's something that I really do typically enjoy reading. And like when the dedication of this book said for the jealous, I was like, "Oh, like what is this? Like what am I getting myself into?" Like okay. So I do really like that the story was so focused on the relationship between these two women because I feel like that was the strongest like one of the strongest things of the book for me. But I also feel like I don't know how I feel about Enka and Matild as characters. Like they just didn't feel like that strong of characters for me. Like I just wanted to connect to their stories a little bit more. And I actually think like the sci-fi elements and like the plot of the book is really what pulled me into the story a lot more than the characters did. If that makes sense. And speaking of the sci-fi things, I actually wanted to talk about this because like there were so many cool like sci-fi things that were getting brought up in this book, like just things that were happening in the plot. Like the biggest part of this story is this thing called the Scaffold, which is a device that puts you in someone else's mind, and they're basically describing it as like a brain being downloaded onto another brain, and they were like testing out, you know, like doing this with another full brain. And they said the reason for this was that they wanted to like create more empathy in people, or like have you understand people better, because then you can like experience their trauma like firsthand, which is very interesting. And how did you feel about like just some of the sci-fi elements in general, like with the idea of the scaffold, and like is that something that you think is like interesting, or is that something that really like drew you into the story?
Yeah, I think that again, it's one of those things that I like, that's happening. Like that is for sure being something being tested in labs.
Yeah,
There's no
very
way
realistic.
yeah, there's no way that things like that aren't already being studied. So I think that that is just an interesting thing in and of itself, that like we're reading obviously like a horror literary version of it, but which is less scary than the thought of like it actually happening in a real day. So like I don't know, I think that yeah, for me, it's definitely makes me more intrigued.
Yeah, I think when we first learned about it and they were referencing it before they talked about exactly what the technology was, and it was referred to as like brain farming and like mind renovation, I was like, this is so fucked up. What's happening? I was so into the idea because it sounded like, the thing is, I didn't read the synopsis before reading this book, which is so crazy. Like I only got an idea from, I think, the original pitch when Ling Ling Huang like originally announced the book. And so I didn't even know what we were getting into. And so as soon when it was introduced, I was like, this is fascinating. I was so, because I love clone books. I just love the idea of being in someone else's head and like being able to access someone else's thoughts is so fascinating. And I can see why the characters got caught up into it so easily.
Yeah, I especially thought it was interesting when they had this whole idea of like trauma editing or whatever they were like calling it. And basically like, you know, having this idea of like, who am I without my trauma? Or like, would I even still be the same person if I didn't have those experiences? And I think that that was like a really big theme I noticed throughout some of the book was that. And I just thought that was really fascinating. And also the reveal, like were you surprised by the reveal that like Logan himself was a clone? Because I personally didn't see that coming, and that was like one of the things I was like, whoa, like took me out of the story, because it gets revealed to our main character Enka that he wasn't her husband, right? He was her boyfriend or fiance.
Her husband.
Oh, it was her husband. Okay. Her husband, it's revealed that he's actually a clone. He's like a clone of his dad, and even Logan doesn't know that he's a clone. And how did you feel about that storyline? Because I feel like that was like a big reveal that I was taken off guard by. But then there's also like more elements to that, like when they said like they were telling her like she can't tell him that he's a clone because it would like upset him or whatever. And then when they had this big argument and she like actually told him that he's a clone, and then he reacted violently and like harmed a woman, and then they were like, oh, don't worry, we reset his memory so that he doesn't remember doing all that, and he doesn't remember that he's a clone. But how did you feel about that reveal and like that whole plot line happening?
I thought, like, I wasn't expecting it at all. And once it happened, I thought that it added just obviously a little like more unease within my homeostasis while reading it, because imagining that like he really is like the clone of the guy that we don't really like, you know, like, I don't know. It was that whole like sleeping with someone you know but don't want to sort of thing. I don't know. It made it weird. And I think that it lent even more like not even unease just with that concept, but with like what is going to happen, because obviously he was drilling it into her head that like you can't tell him, like you have to understand that he is his own person. You have to understand that like he's a real person. Right. And she obviously couldn't get past it. And since it was brought into the plot, I was just waiting for shit to hit the fan, and it did. And I wasn't disappointed.
Yeah.
I'm so glad everybody else is saying that they were surprised by that, because like I hate when a moment like that you can predict. There was no way I was predicting that in a million years. I was like, as soon as I read that passage, I was like, yes, this is so fun. This is such a good time. I love a clone. And the thing is, looking back on it now, like all the signs were there. He
Yeah.
like had barely a personality. Like considering he was participating in this big industry, he was never like the bad guy. And like the bad guy is always the one in charge. Like
Mhm.
I expected this to turn into the traditional story of like he manipulated her into it and he's a terrible man and he's going to do terrible things. Like I thought that's
Mhm.
obviously the direction we're going in. But the fact that he also was not a willing participant and he also was being manipulated, like that just added to such a smart story to me. Like I
Mhm.
loved it so much. And then I got so upset when Enka revealed to him that he was a clone because she was
Mhm.
like explicitly told to not do that. And that's
Yeah.
the moment that I was like, Inka's never going to come back from this. Like she isn't a super unlikable character the entire time to me. She was complex, she was interesting. And at that point I was like, she just doesn't think anything through. All of her decisions are
Yeah.
just so poor. Like it's one thing to go to Argentina with 1 day's notice and be like, I'm doing it for the plot, but to ruin an entire experiment when you get brought in on it and told the truth, I can't
Yeah.
imagine how pissed I would be if I brought someone into that and I was like, here's the one rule, don't do it, and then she turns around and fucks him over. It
Yeah.
was so sad.
I mean, yeah, and she was such a messy character in general too, because of her whole like sabotaging Matild's results or whatever, and then like kind of manipulating that whole situation was
When
very
she took that
intense.
photo out of the developing fluid, I about combusted. I about combusted. I was like,
Yeah.
girl, what are you
Yeah.
doing?
When it first mentioned it, I don't think I clocked it as big as it was. I was
Yeah.
like, what? She just touched it a little bit? Did she truly know how much of an impact this was making? Like I couldn't
Yeah.
tell.
Yeah. Yeah, same. I think too, part of the cool aspect of like the scaffold is how Enka, like eventually in the story, she's able to occupy Matild's mind. And I was just wondering if I was the only one who felt a little bit confused at times by like how this was working.
Oh,
Because
for
like,
sure.
yeah, because I was like,
100%.
oh my God, like, is it just like going over my head? Like I had so much like trouble visualizing how this would work. Cause it was like it was even to the point where she said she was like having a three-way with her husband without his consent because she
Yeah.
was like in Matild's mind or something. And I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out if like there was moments where I'm sure if I read it slower and more
Mhm.
thoroughly, I'm sure it did make sense. But as I was speeding through it, because I was so into it, I was like, so is she in Matild's mind and looking through Matild's eyes, or is Matild's memories like in her own mind?
Yeah.
I didn't quite figure out exactly how it was functioning. But so when she was having sex with her husband, she like brought Matild into her own mind, right? So
Mhm.
it was
Yeah.
as if he was sleeping with Matild.
Yeah.
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 Because I'm like, it's her consciousness, right? Because like when they said the scaffold is like they're downloading or like putting a consciousness into another brain, right? So
But
I'm
then
like,
does Matild get that memory
I know, because
of
I'm like, it's just
sleeping
her
with her
past
husband?
memories, right? Like it's her past
Yeah.
memories that are getting downloaded. So it's not like, but then
I
I don't know
think-
because
I
go
think
ahead.
that she's able to like see her immediate world through Matild's perspective.
Mhm.
Like she can almost like change how she's taking in information and thinking. So she's like using everything from the scaffold via Matild, but I don't think she actually like body jumps. Unless I'm
Yeah.
wrong, which
I
could be
think
the
you're
case.
correct. But so
I
then,
might
not that I think it's okay that she
Right.
brought Matild into the bedroom in her mind, but I was thinking like, okay, well, it would have been a bigger deal if Matild actually like was there without her consent, because
Mhm.
Matild's not actually going to have this as an event and a memory in her mind.
Mhm.
But then eventually they do because they meld even more, right? And they share everything, I guess.
Yeah, because I was gonna say the story kind of gets to a point where like even after, and correct me if I'm wrong, even after they remove the scaffolding device, it's like she's still connected to
Mhm.
Matild in some way, and they're like, oh, it's corrupted her, it's a part of her kind of thing. And
Right.
that was just very thought-provoking, very interesting. Like I liked how it was like she was getting like headaches every time she got closer to her or something. I was like, ooh, like that's so weird. And also, how did you feel about that part where it was like she went as Matild to like, what was it, the pastor guy or the pope guy or whatever, and was like, oh, you don't recognize me in this body, but like you molested Matild as a child. And she like wanted to give him the opportunity to like, you know, apologize and like make up for what he did. But I was like, whoa, so she's going to him like as Matild in her head, or like with those memories. That was just very
It got so messy. It got so messy. Like once I think she like pressured and manipulated Matild into getting the scaffold, like from then on, everything was just wrong. Everything had a morally gray veil over it. Because I it's like she did it for her own fame. Because like I don't think she did it to actually justify or like try to make things better for Matild. She was just being selfish in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, that was such a sad part of the book when we found out like Matild has just experienced trauma after trauma. Like she's been through so many difficult things, and finding out about the priest and what he did to her, it gives the context to her art earlier, because she puts on the most interesting, crazy art installations. Where there's one where there's the one where she like turns on priests and like photographs them and like puts it up, and like that's good. So it gave context to that, which I appreciated. But like, remember there was that one where like women were coming to her art exhibit to get inseminated. That was crazy.
And then they weren't really like viable. And like, imagine.
Matild was doing crazy things.
Crazy. Well, and another one of the like sci-fi elements too that I thought was crazy was this idea of Immaculate Conception, which was like, creating a baby without the male's parts. So it's like, that was also another crazy thing in this book that I was like, wow. And that also feels like something that could be on our future horizons of like more in the near future. What was did you have anything specific about the book that you wanted to mention that you didn't like? Or maybe if you can't think of anything, because I know you both really like this one, but if you can't think of anything you didn't like, was there anything specifically that you really liked about it that we haven't gotten the chance to talk about yet?
I'm sure we will talk about like the ending specifically, but that's sort of my answer.
What you didn't like was the ending?
Not entirely. Because
okay, tell me more.
You know those TikToks of those like directed by Michael Bay? Like how it's like the twitch at the end of the last clip of the movie. It's like, oh, they're actually alive, and you know things might be completely different. So it's like I'm like super 50-50 on it. It's like I understand that now maybe Matild will have the ability or the opportunity for like revenge or something like that, because they didn't really end on good terms, right? Like so like I think that it opened the door, like her starting to draw or write at the end of the book opened the door for a cool potential of that. And that's why I kind of like it also, because I do like when like a horror thriller ends sort of without a bow. Like I like sitting down and like theorizing of like, okay, well, what could happen from here? You know, like we don't have like, this is how it ended, period. Close the book and you're done with it. So it's like, I do like that it is open, but I also am just sort of annoyed for some reason that like, I don't know, maybe it's just like the enjoying the openness, but still being annoyed about it at the same exact time. And like, I don't know what to do with that with my own body.
Yeah.
I think the only thing I didn't, my only note was that like maybe I wanted some more body horror, because there was so much of it in Natural Beauty. Like I remember like there was like eyelashes and like eyeball stuff that I mean didn't like because it was disgusting. But I was expecting that Ling Ling Huang, like that's what she does. Like that's her thing, is the body horror. So when it wasn't super descriptive about like, I feel like we could have gone into more brain stuff and it could have been a little more descriptive. That's the only thing I can really think of. Maybe, well, I saw one other person say this, and so maybe I just like am taking it, but the before and after, or then and now, I think wasn't the most necessary. Like I didn't find the time jumps were, I think it would have been the same story if it was told in a linear fashion, I guess. I don't think it really mattered going back and forth. Or maybe the before could have come in more because I think it disappeared at one point and we were just kind of in the now. But I don't know if I even agree with myself.
That's exactly how I feel.
Yeah. That's what I mean. This one's interesting to talk about because when I was talking about this book, I saw so many people because like when I said my problem with it was that the first half I thought was really slow and I couldn't really get into it that much and I was considering DNFing and then I loved the second half. I got so many people saying, "Oh, I had the exact opposite opinion where like they loved the first half and then they didn't really like the second half as much." And I think it's interesting because I do think this book has like really different tones, at least for me in the first and the second half, because I think the first half does feel a little bit more like literary and like focused more on like the talk about art and like friendship and like those kinds of things, whereas like the second half is where it starts to get really unhinged and I feel like the horror and like the sci-fi themes start to get a little bit stronger. So I guess it just depends with like what you're looking for, because I know some people had the exact opposite take, which is cool.
But I love that because like that's how things happen, you know, like you are so enamored with somebody that you aren't paying attention and like you just have this slow friendship and then you realize someone was manipulating you or that she couldn't have gotten into this terrible situation if she wasn't just living life and so like obsessed with this woman. So I think the trajectory of the book really matches the vibes. But also a couple people were talking about the body horror with her and her flies and her baby, and I wanted to note, yes, absolutely, the body horror was fucking disgusting. And because it was so good, that's why I wanted more of it. It didn't like miss out on body horror. There was some. I just wanted because that scene was so disgusting. I was like, more.
Yeah, I know. I agree. I needed more.
I was entirely expecting a lot more body horror because of natural beauty. So I agree with that completely.
Yeah. And jumping back to what we were talking about with the ending of this book. So at the end of this book, we kind of get like a flash forward, right? I think it said like 5 years later or like 5 years had passed and we find out that they're still part of each other's lives. And I think it was that, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, because maybe I didn't read this correctly, but in that final chapter, didn't it say that like Enka like had Matild like upstairs or she was keeping her upstairs? I don't know if that was like implied that it was like against her will. But then she said like, oh, she's starting to draw again. And so it was kind of like this full circle moment of like Matild's getting back to, you know, her art and things like that. So I know Sid, you said you didn't really care for the ending or, but where did you think, I guess, the story would have gone, or like, would you have preferred something else to happen at the end of the book, or like just generally?
Do you know what I mean by it feeling like, because if the way that I think about the ending, you know, maybe I am wrong, but I feel like the epilogue wasn't entirely necessary. And I want to say that where it ended before, I don't even remember. I would have to skim and we don't have time for that. But I want to say that by the time that the actual story ended, I was under the impression that she was not like sort of in a comatose state, like not participating, just kind of, she would be like a turn water feed sort of situation with like a coma patient. And so that's why I'm picturing those TikToks of the directed by Michael Bay. And it's like, it comes to 5 years later and she twitches and everyone's like, ah,
like it's supposed to be like a gotcha. She's still alive. And that felt like cheap, or
it felt a little bit cheap to me. Yeah, exactly. Like a little gimmicky. But
like
also
they
that
said
could
she
have
died.
been like, it could have, I don't know, it could have done something a little bit grander or creepier even. I don't know.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah,
I guess that makes sense with like how literary it feels. Then it's kind of like a little silly feeling. I loved it. I loved it. I loved how like I think I just loved the whole finale. I loved how the powers reversed and she was like transmitting into Enka's brain. And I was like, oh shit. And then I loved when it felt kind of like the ending of The Substance, just in the performative element, like a little, not the actual ending, but a little bit before. They're at like or like an art show or whatever, and she announces that she's going to stop doing art with Matild and that she like respects her and whatever, and had to kind of expose herself in front of everybody. I loved all of it. It felt like Black Mirror vibes for sure. I think there's a lot of people who are looking for Black Mirror kind of books, and this one, because it has such a slow beginning, I feel like people might give up on it. But the second half is so Black Mirror.
Yeah. Yeah, I would totally agree. I I was gonna say, because one of my follow-up questions was like leading right into that would be like, what book, movie, TV shows, like anything that you would recommend if you enjoyed this book? Because I know Black Mirror is definitely a huge one that first comes to mind, because I do think it does have a lot of Black Mirror vibes. But were there any other, like books, movies, media, anything like that that reminded you of this book that you would recommend in comparison?
I should have grabbed them. But I will just say them with my mouth. Definitely like Bloom by Delilah S. Dawson.
Oh,
Like
nice.
the obsession parts of the two girls' relationship. I feel like it's a different vibe. It's not as literary, like whatever sci-fi, but like, man, what a good book. That one. And then I want to say, I don't know how this one is like grain of salt. Like maybe don't listen to it. But Paul Bear's Club by Paul Tremblay, because I feel like it's kind of like slow and quiet, and then it like really sneaks up on you, and then it like gets pretty weird.
Interesting.
But I know me and Kayla are like the
only two fans on the planet.
We are the if no one likes
biggest fan club members right here.
Yeah, right. And then the last one I had was, again, sort of loose, but Sundial by Katrina Ward. Just because it has, I don't want to like spoil anything. So like just the like sci-fi tech elements, I would say, are comparable in some ways. It is a little bit more involved with like animals though. So know that before going into that book. I actually really didn't like that book because of that element, but like it has similar like tech energy. But yeah, I think my top one would be Bloom.
Yeah. Amazing.
I think there's so many books about like friendship and the obsessive dynamics that I was trying to think of something that had other things in common too. But there's some in the chat that are being mentioned that I totally agree with, like Rouge by Mona Awad, especially like the second half and the performance.
Right.
I see that one for sure. I'm going to say Yellowface if you don't want horror and sci-fi, because it has similar themes as far as art and stealing art. It's also by an Asian author, so I would recommend people read Yellowface. This one is also not similar as far as genre, but The God of the Woods has similar conversation about something we didn't even touch on really, is like the children and how Enka doesn't have control over her children's life really. Like she's being manipulated by this mother like figure, her mother-in-law. And The God of the Woods has such similar vibes as far as the control over your own life, and as a woman not getting to do exactly what you want because you're being controlled by someone that you don't even realize is controlling you. And then the horror that I thought of that I think would be a good comp is The Center by Aisha Manazir Siddiqui, because we have a woman who's getting into this weird technical world where she can like suddenly learn a language really quickly, but you have to kind of sacrifice things to get into it. So that is the only horror that I can think of that would be the closest. I need to find some more sci-fi horror that I'm into, because this one was great for me.
The Center and Yellowface are such good comparisons. I don't know. I didn't think of that myself. Yeah, the ones that I pulled for like books that I think could be your vibe, maybe. I have So Happy for You, just like messy female friendships that are kind of, unlikable characters. This one's more like thriller-ish, even though I don't think I would describe this really thriller. I don't know what this is.
We're the only two in that fan club.
Yeah, we're the only two in this fan club, I guess. But I really liked that one. And then as far as like memories go, or books that are about memories, Recursion by Blake Crouch is a sci-fi book that kind of talks more about memories. I can't remember exactly. It's like the memories are shaping reality, or like there's something weird with memories in this one. And then also I haven't finished this book yet, but Dissolution by Nicholas Binge. This one's also about like memories that are getting stolen. So I feel like it kind of has like slightly similar vibes to something like that. And then I don't have the book, but there's a book called Where They Wait by Scott Carson. And that one, it kind of reminded me of that book a little bit, just with some of the technology things. I only ended up giving that one like around 3 to 3.5 stars, but some of the technology things kind of did remind me of that book. And I think it would be a good comparison to this one.
I forgot about that book. That's a great one.
Yeah.
I gave it a
like
4, I think.
yeah, it was fascinating. Like some of the technological things were kind of similar, and yeah, I think they were handled better in this book, to be honest. But they did have some crossover there with those two books. So yeah, those are mine. I saw there were so many good ones in the chat. Like the writing retreat, I think would be, yeah, if you want messy female friendship dynamics, that's fantastic. I haven't heard of Sirens and Muses.
I read it. It was good.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, Black Mirror is a good one. Oh, My Brilliant Friend series. I see. Yeah, I hear about that one a lot for like jealous friends. So that's interesting. Oh, and Transcendence, the movie with Johnny Depp. Interesting. Cool. Well, one of the final questions that I had, but I think I know the answer, is like, will you read from this author again? Which I know probably both of you would say yes. So to follow up that question, I would say, what would you like to see her do in the future? Like, is there anything you'd like to see her explore more? Or like, do you think she'd do really well writing in like other genres even? Or like, what would you like to see her do next?
I want her to lean like so hard. I'm sure Kayla was thinking the same thing. So hard into like the body horror. I just want to like, I want it to be crazy from start to finish, or at least like unsettling and like horror focused. Like I think that she does literary like beautifully, but I think that she could even go even harder within the visuals, because when she does it, it's so good. And maybe that's why they're so good, because they're kind of shocking. But I do like, I would just love any plot that still talks on like those socio-political conversations, but has even more horror moments. I don't know what that would be, but yeah, like someone said, more chaos, please. Yeah,
just more chaos. That's it. Yeah.
Zombies.
Ooh. Yes.
I was trying to think of something, because like we could get the rotting bodies.
Yeah.
But then like how often do you get like a literary zombie story? I've read one, Elegy for the Undead. That one was really good. I think she could write like you know, there's queer subtext. I think there was less in here, but she could really do like a sapphic zombie story.
Dude, I would read it. That's all I'm saying.
I'd read the hell out of that. Like, I think that a lot of zombie stories that I see are either like real life or like satirical. And I would rather it not be funny. I want to be scared.
Yeah. I agree with Kendall. I think she's good at writing like relevant horror. She's always like really on the nose with like themes, because yeah, with like AI and like technology advancing, I feel like this is very on the nose right now. And then with, you know, natural beauty being about the beauty industry. Yeah. So it's like she's writing about things that are very like relevant, and you know, so I would be curious if she did beauty industry and now she's doing technology, like what's next? You know, like
I know, right.
I'm very curious to know. I do think she could lean more into, yeah, like maybe mother body horror, like pregnancy. That would be tough to read. But I could see that.
Yeah, going into this, I was really worried that it was going to be, because of the title, about like birth and pregnancy, and like that's not something I really lean towards. I know. So I liked where it stayed.
I know. I do wonder why she decided to call this one Immaculate Conception, because it's like that was such a small part of the book. I think, you know, like the idea of the pregnancy.
They were also saying that's like creativity, like every art piece that they did was like Immaculate Conception, like, but like yes,
yeah.
And then also it does have the. Yeah. It also has like the religious overtones with some of it too.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense, because I was taking it so literally. I was like, so we read about this Immaculate Conception and like that's what the book's titled? I was like, what? So confused. But that makes sense. Okay, well, was there anything I didn't touch on that you were just like dying to talk about before I wrap up the live show? Because I know you both love this book, and if you have a lot of feelings on your chest about it, like.
No, do you want a moment to rant about anything? I feel like because we loved it, you didn't have your moment.
No, I honestly don't even want to rant, because I gave it 3 stars. It's like with this book, I feel so, you know, like middle of the road about it. So I don't have any strong feelings of like dislike with this book either.
I was hoping we talked you into like a 3.5.
I know.
I know. No, I appreciate this book for like the conversations you can have afterwards. And I also like love the thought-provoking science stuff, like that sci-fi stuff. Oh my God, I love it. I ate that shit up. I think the only reason why this one didn't work for me as much was because there was so much of the pretentious art talk at the beginning of this book, and like I don't know why. I know it's meant to be pretentious.
I love it.
I know it is, but like sometimes I'm still just like, ugh, like it just
The
gets
hand
me.
on the glass.
Yeah.
Like,
I know.
come on.
I'm just
The
like,
like
why?
umbilical cord imagery with the PlayStation controllers. Like,
Yeah.
come on.
Exactly, when they're like, we just watched a human transform on stage. We just watched the human experience on stage. It's just like, yeah. But I did enjoy it for the most part. And I'm so glad that you both loved it, because this does not always happen to me with these live shows. So I'm relieved. This is great. So any final thoughts, any upcoming, videos that you want to promote, or book club things that you'd like to promote, or anything like that before we wrap things up?
I just put out 2 of my favorite vlogs that I've ever done in my entire life, which
Yes.
was the swapping screen time for reading. I'm really proud of it, and the new series that I already kind of mentioned, but the spinner wheel, like a spinner wheel vlog. So those are really hot
Yes.
right now.
Yeah. And available to watch now, so you can go watch them right now
can
after
watch
this
it
live.
Click the link.
Yeah, click the link down below.
No, yeah, I don't know. I'm just
Amazing.
having a lot more fun with vlogs recently, so I'm excited.
Good.
I'm excited
Yeah.
to
I love
keep it
that.
going.
That's great.
Okay, I'll promote the Literally Dead book club and the troop at the same time, because we're both talking about With a Vengeance in July.
Yes.
And then also, obviously, Summerween is coming up. If anyone's here from my channel or Sid's channel and doesn't follow Gabby for some stupid reason, she's hosting a thriller, mystery, horror kind of readathon that's starting in just a couple days. So you should participate. This is my, I think, 4th year, and I'm going to be vlogging every day.
Yay, can't wait. Oh my gosh. I asked you to promote yourself and you just promoted my things.
Yeah. She's a selfish queen.
I know, but thank you for that. Yes, in the month of July, if you haven't heard, we will be reading the new Riley Sager. Kayla's book club reads it almost every single July as well. It's just tradition at this point. I don't know what it is about the Riley Sager books. I just get so excited about them. And so hopefully this one ends up being a good time. I'm a little bit nervous about this one, I'm not gonna lie.
Same.
Yeah, because historical Agatha Christie, 1940s. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, please be good. Sending it out to the universe. Hopefully, and I'll be doing a live show with my mom and my sister for that one. Probably in the first weekend of August, so it should be good. And then soon, very soon, I'll be posting my TBR in a couple days, and that will have our August pick information included in that video. So keep your eyes peeled. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining this live show this afternoon. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much to my co-hosts for reading along with me and participating, and thank you to everybody for joining this live stream. I hope you have a good rest of your night, and we will see you later.